Thank you so much for joining me today on the Absolute Business Mindset podcast and YouTube channel. Today we have Tony Kitchens, who is a business strategy consultant. We talk about his experience through growing up, his experiences through Toastmasters. You'll find out more details on there. He's an entrepreneur for 32 years, been doing it a very long time, and is now a strategy consultant. We talk about his book, which is called The Gift of Pain, which is really, really insightful and really, really fascinating. So if you are enjoying this content, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do click the bell icon and the subscribe button. It's really important for the channel to hit the subscribe button because it really pushes the video out to a wider audience. So thank you very much, and over to the podcast. Today we have Tony Kitchens, who is a business strategy consultant. Hello, Tony. How are you today?
Hello, Mark. How are you doing today? Thank you for having me, and I look forward to sharing some time with your audience.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure to have you on. So the podcast is called Absolute Business Mindset. What does a business mindset mean to you?
It means understanding that business is a 24-hour job. It's a lifestyle. It's a career. It's all of the above. And it never ends until it's over. And it's not something that you can have balance between work and life. That's not a reality. You're constantly on. And having that mindset, knowing that up front, will allow you to be able to prepare as you go through this entrepreneurial journey.
It's really interesting you say that. What rung my mind when I worked in corporate for 14 years, and one of my bosses said to me, and this is working for a big corporation, and he said there is no work-life balance. If you are on work, you will neglect your family. If you prioritize your family, even for a period, that will neglect your career and your development. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, that it's an ambition to have work-life balance, but in reality, you're probably not going to have it.
No, you won't have it. Something will always suffer. But again, I think that the important part to that is making sure your family understands that you're not neglecting them on purpose. Yeah. However, you are providing a life for them, a lifestyle. You're providing a resource that you need as a family, and that may take you away from some of that Netflix time, for example.
Yeah.
But it's worth it in the long term.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
Great question, Mark. I would say humility. My parents raised me to respect others and to command respect based on the way that I treat people and the way that I treat myself. And I think I've carried that over all of these years, 52 years now. I've carried that. So when I meet other people, I don't necessarily look at them in a position that's higher than me or a position that's lower than me. We're equal in my mind until they prove otherwise, or until I prove otherwise to them. So I think empathy is probably one of the biggest traits that I've brought along.
And that was your parents that instilled that in you?
Exactly. Yes.
So one of the questions I had for later, which we're going to jump to now, what do you think is more important for an entrepreneur, authority or humility?
Humility. Absolutely, 100% humility. Authority is something that people who are looking for power, and then once they receive that level of power, they want to wield it like a sword, like a gun. And that's not how it works. If you want to get people to follow you and follow the dreams you have, and even to support you, you have to be willing to connect with them on a one-to-one basis. But you can't have a hammer over their heads waiting for them to make any little mistake. It does not work. They'll do the bare minimum. And then, Mark, what will happen is pretty soon you'll find yourself by yourself.
Yeah, I would agree. I think authority doesn't work so well in startups and in business. It works in the corporate environment, as you say, that people have been built up and equally people have aspired for that authority. But I think as a startup owner, as a business owner, someone said that the most important thing to my business is not my clients, it's my employees, because my employees represent me to my clients. So he thought that, I think it was Gary Vee said that the employees are the most important part of the jigsaw.
Yeah, Gary Vee is really big on treating people with kindness.
Yeah.
And he exudes that. Every video you see, every speech that he gives, he's always talks about humility and treating the employees like peers in a sense.
It's really interesting. Like I can't remember when I first saw Gary Vee, probably 10 years ago, something like that. At that time, he was talking about hustle, grind, working 24/7, do everything that you can to be successful. It's really interesting, his evolution, that he's now at that point, size of his businesses and the way he wants to conduct himself. It's not so much about grind and hustle. It's about being kind and being thoughtful and working with your employees, as you say, as peers, rather than necessarily wielding an axe above them.
Yeah. That's one of the beauties, though, Mark, really, of growing as an entrepreneur is you evolve.
Yeah.
You absolutely evolve. That's the gift in all of this. It's not the end result. It's not the end game that it's the magic. The magic is what you become along that way.
Yeah.
And who you become. That's what Gary Vee has done. And most entrepreneurs have evolved in the same way. They may have different tendencies, but they've evolved from the people they were when they first started out. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. So when I was doing some research on you, I saw that you are a participant, or you were a participant of Toastmasters. So Toastmasters, if anyone that doesn't know, is like it's you develop your speech, motivational speech in oh god, I can't say it. Is about like motivational speakers and building that. So we have Toastmasters in the UK. Obviously, you have it in the US as well. So what's the role that it's done, and how has it helped you?
Toastmasters is a really good organization. As a matter of fact, I was in one of our club calls just last week.
Right.
I've been a member for 3 years. One of the things that the audience members may notice or may not notice, you won't hear me use words like and so. Those words, we consider those to be crutch words, which means in the normal course of a conversation, your mind is looking to fill spaces. And it creates and it brings up those words that are kind of crutches instead of you allowing a natural pause in the conversation. That's just one benefit that I get from Toastmasters. Beyond that, you get the opportunity to write speeches, to recite speeches, and have your peers evaluate those speeches during the clubs, during those meetings. It's been an absolutely wonderful organization.
And so you're a motivational speaker now. That's one of your businesses. So who do you speak to? What's your message? What do you try and communicate with people?
A couple of different audiences. One is a business audience, and those are either aspiring entrepreneurs or existing business owners. The second is a group of people in an audience who's looking to go from where they are today toward the goals or dreams that they had when they were younger. And they're not quite sure how to move the needle forward. They're not quite sure how to progress. So those are the two audience. And I've spoken to people all over the world, especially on a virtual platform. And I just love interacting with the audiences because no matter where you are in the world, people have a few basic similarities. And it's just very refreshing to talk to people who have different backgrounds, but similar perspectives.
100% agree. And I think now, were you doing face-to-face before pandemic?
Yes.
And then you transferred onto doing the virtual events?
That's correct.
Do you think you'll go back to doing more face-to-face stuff?
I think a lot of organizations are bringing speakers in now to do more face-to-face. However, the corporations, it's an expensive venture for them because they have to have air and accommodations and everything else. And I think what you see with the economy these days, they need to bring people in. However, they want to do it at the least expense that they can. So they're still doing a lot, probably mostly virtual.
Right. Okay. What's your why, Tony?
My wife and son. Simple as that.
And what is there's obviously the emotional connection you have with them, but what
is it being a provider? Is it being a role model? What's your reasoning of having your family and kids as your why?
Yeah. And I kept that answer short, Mark, for a very specific reason, which is when you have a strong why, when you really know why you do what you do, it doesn't take a very long explanation. So when people ask, it's my wife and my son, period. And everything that goes along with that, it is being a provider. It is being a role model. It's being that person when times are tough, when times are good. When they look at me, I want them to see stability. I want them to see that even when times are challenging, whatever that may look like, that they look to me and they see the look on my face and they know we'll get through it, or we're going to enjoy this, whatever it is. And that's why I wake up early. That's why I stay up late. And that's why I do the things I don't want to do, because I know that they're looking to me from a human perspective. They're looking to me just as a bellwether, so to speak.
So
because if I don't look okay, they're going to be a little nervous.
So the stability will come onto the moment. But something you said there, which rings true on a few conversations that I've had, doing the things that, and I think it's another quote. I'm not sure who it is. Doing the things that other people don't want to do is really important. I think it was David Goggins that said it. Name a couple of those things that you're willing to do that most people aren't.
Yeah, David Goggins is an absolute beast.
He is.
And I often think about him. Who's going to carry the boat when I go walk and don't want to walk in the morning? But when you refer to things that I don't want to do, I don't necessarily like social media.
Okay.
But I understand that it's a part of how you do business today from a branding standpoint.
Yep.
I'm not excited about it. It doesn't excite me, but it is a necessary evil. Making an extreme number of calls every single day to reach out and contact the people I need to grow my business is absolutely something that I don't necessarily get a lot of enjoyment out of, but I have to do.
So that's
walking
really
every single day. It's the same thing that David says. Sometimes you look at your shoes and you just don't want to put them on, but you do it. You do it. And as soon as you get started 10 minutes into it, it's okay. And you remember the feeling you have, those endorphins are going. There are 1,000 things, Mark, that I can probably list, but on a daily basis, it's those things for sure.
And it's really interesting you say that. So it sounds like that you are promoting sort of more traditional methods of marketing. So picking up the phone and speaking to people rather than digitally setting up Google ads or Facebook ads and things like that. Why do you still think, and I agree with you, first of all, why do you still think those traditional marketing methods are so successful in business?
Business has always been about relationships, 100%. And I think with online presences today, people can put up a very unique view of themselves and what they do. But if you talk to them for 5 minutes, there's a conflict between what you see and what you know to be the truth when you actually speak to a business person. They don't necessarily speak the language, but someone has done a good copy for their website so it looks like they know what they're talking about. And I think that's one of the things that I'm very cautious about, is working with people just because they have a nice website. So I prefer to get on the phone and talk to people, because you'll know pretty quickly whether they're good at what they say they're good at or not. And I think it's a lost art. However, it does get to the point where corporations, when you're dealing with companies, companies like to talk to people and they want relationships. They're not going to hire you because you're good on TikTok. They need to talk to you. They need to interview. They need to sit down with you and see what you're really about. And I love that part of business, 100%.
Yeah. So someone told me a long time ago that business is a people business. Whatever the business is, you're selling to somebody or you're connecting with someone or collaborating with someone. It's always a person at the end of, if you even go to the digital side, there is a person that's scrolling, looking at your Facebook ads. you need to start talking to those people, whether you generate them through phone calls or maybe Facebook ads. You still need to get that connection with them and understand if you can deliver a product or service or help them in that way. So 100% agree. I still think business should be based around, and metrics are important, data is important, but you got to speak before you go into business with someone. You've got to speak to them. You've got to understand what's ticking for them to be able to understand whether you can sell to them or connect with them or collaborate with them.
Yeah, this notion of knowing, liking, and trusting somebody before you do business is very interesting to me. How can you know, like, and trust someone because they put up an ad that they paid for?
Yeah. As you say,
right?
Probably someone's created that. A digital marketer's created that.
I can know, like, and trust someone when I sit down and we talk about children, we talk about experiences we've had.
Yeah.
Right. I can begin to know them. I can begin to trust them at that point. But you don't really get that online. But that's what people are selling. That post a video, post a quick short or reel, and then you become familiar with that person. Well, you really don't know that person. But there is a component of social media that's extremely important, and it has a place. The only thing that I'm saying is I will not give up on personal relationships in lieu of that. It just won't happen.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to something you said about your family, that you are the stability, you're the rock of your family. So just because I feel that's my role in my family as well. I've got 2 young girls, 7 and 9, and a wife. When everyone else is waving their arms in the air, going, "I don't know what's going on. Why is this happening?" They look to me to be the calming sort of voice, to the person of reason, not always reason, but you know what I mean? Like that person who is there as a stable rock for the family. So this is why I've connected with you on that. I just want you to sort of talk a little bit further about your role and what you see your role within your family.
Absolutely. It's similar to being on an airplane.
Okay.
You know that you're okay unless
Yeah.
the pilot gets on that intercom.
Yes.
When the pilot gets on the intercom, then you need to stop what you're doing and pay attention.
Yeah.
And it's no different. Mark, it's the same thing with you and I, which is there are times that life will just weigh on you. And you sit down by yourself in solitude, and the weight of it, you may just sit there and you just close your eyes. You may shed a few tears because that's what we do as men. Because what we understand is the weight that we bear of taking care of our wives, taking care of our children. And it's not something they put on us. It's something that we sought out.
Yeah.
And we agreed. This is our responsibility. So we're not being macho. It's nothing like that. What it is we just need to be that person who's the biggest cheerleader. We need to be that person, and no matter what's happening in their lives, that they can look to, and sometimes we'll just smile. Sometimes we'll have a good word for them. And sometimes we just won't say anything. But the worst thing we can do is panic.
Yes.
Because if we panic, everything collapses. Everything. So a lot of times for us as men or the heads of our household, whoever that may be, the best thing you can do is just to appear to be strong in those moments. You may not have all the answers. You may not know how to figure it out. But if you just appear to be strong just until you can come up with a solution, then a lot of times that's enough.
Yeah.
But we don't want them looking at a scary pilot.
No, that's so true. I love that analogy. Love it. So when I was doing some research on you, I saw that you've written a book called The Gift of Pain. And I did a little bit of research on this, and it's not the strapline, but what I read about it was it's about continuing to dream even when life is tough. Now, I love that aspect. I love what you're saying there, because what I've worked out is the struggle, the pain, the difficulty is part of the course. And to be a business owner, especially, you have to go through difficulties but the journey, the good and the bad, is the joy is not necessarily reaching the top of the mountain, it's the journey. So could maybe tell me a little bit about your book and why you think dreaming is important when it's tough.
The best time to dream is when things are difficult. The best time to want something is when you don't have it. The best time to want to be a better person is when you know you're not that person. That's the best time. Because when you're doing well in anything that you're doing, business, life, whatever it is, times move really, really quickly. Mark, and I know you can relate to this. When times are good, it flies. Everybody's running around like their hair is on fire, and you don't really have time to take stock of who you are and really what's happening. You know that you're having a good time, but it's when life slows down, when the kids are a little bit under the weather, when the wife is not quite sure if she wants to change careers, that's the time when you sit back and you really think about life and what you want to do and who you are. Is this the place where you want to be? And the thing that I've learned is I've learned way more during difficult times than I have when things are going well. And what that made me do is look at it and say, okay, these difficult times, there's a gift because of them. Now, I may not see it in that moment, but the thing I've been able to do to condition myself is say, okay, right now it's a little difficult for whatever circumstance you're in. But I know for sure that down the road, I'm going to look at this, I'm going to look back on it, and I'm going to say, I came out better. I became a better person. I became more resilient. I was able to notice skills that I had that I didn't realize I had, but they were inside of me. And those are the times during difficult times when you learn more about yourself than you ever do.
Who's
And
your
really,
target audience?
yeah, I think the target audience is not from an age perspective, but anyone who's dealing with this place in their life where they're not quite sure who they want to be. And also a group of people who have achieved everything they wanted to achieve in life. However, deep down inside, they probably want to do something different. And I know a lot of people like that, where they're in a career because they went to school for it. They spend a lot of money on education and they are doctors and they really want to be in a band. But how do you make that conversion? And what it leads to, Mark, is this space where it just doesn't feel right. And you're not true to yourself every day because you then continue to live the life that other people want you to live, your parents, because they wanted you to become a doctor or whatever that career is. But you're not completely happy, but you just move through life and you're unsatisfied. And then you get to a certain point, Mark, where you regret it. And you can possibly resent the people who wanted to keep you in that space because it was a dream or a goal for them, not for you.
Do you think anyone can successfully be an entrepreneur?
No.
What skills do you think you need to be an entrepreneur?
There's a difference between being a business owner and an entrepreneur. I think that's the first thing. You can be a business owner. You can have a store and sell some really nice things out of that store, and that's what you do. And that's one thing. An entrepreneur is not a job. It's not even a business. The mind of an entrepreneur is someone who never, ever stops thinking about new ways to do things, creative ways. Constantly, you have this nagging thing in your head where you're always trying to figure out something, where you're always trying to make something better or more efficient, whether it's I go into stores or I go into offices and my mind is just constantly looking at operations. I'm just stuck on operations. They can do that more efficiently. Or wow, they do that very well. And it never ends. Entrepreneurship never ends. So it's not just having a business from 9 to 5. It's really a mindset. An interesting thing is a lot of entrepreneurs create, but they don't execute.
Yes.
They may start a company, but they're not the ones that's going to run it. They'll do an exit. They'll sell their shares, and they'll move on to start something else. That's an entrepreneur.
So is Mark Zuckerberg an entrepreneur now? So he started Facebook in the dorm and built it for his university, and then it became universities, and then it's become the world, country, world, etc. Do you now? I've had my opinions, and I can share with you as well. But do you think Mark Zuckerberg now, as CEO of Facebook or Meta, is an entrepreneur, or do you think he's changed?
That's a great question. I don't know very much about Mark, but here's the thing that I know. I think that he has to have entrepreneurial traits in him. Absolutely, 100% for sure. If I compare him to Elon Musk, however,
Yeah.
Elon is a true entrepreneur, whatever people think about him. When he was a young boy, he would stare off. He would just glance off at the sky. And his school, his teachers, even his parents thought maybe he had an emotional issue because he would just pause. We would be talking, Mark. If you were Elon, we would be talking and you would just pause and just look up at the sky. But here's the thing. When people asked him later in life why he did that, he said, I was envisioning myself going to outer space. And look at him with SpaceX. So if you read biographies, this not a surprise why Elon sends rockets to outer space.
I actually heard I watched an interview with him. I think it was YouTube or something, and two things rung true to me, which was really inspiring and interesting. So we bring it up as you mentioned him. First thing was that that he actually, even now when he's walking through Tesla's one of their manufacturing, he walks through and he looks as an engineer. Originally he was an engineer. He walks through and says, well, why is that doing that? Not necessarily to start with, you should do this. Why is that doing that? And they then tell him, and he then thinks into his engineering brain, well, perhaps you could think about doing this or doing that. So I agree. I think he is from core entrepreneurial and wants to create efficiencies, and it's slightly different from a startup. But I know he had PayPal when he started that. But the other point I wanted to make about him, you say about the staring off into space. Only recently, and we're talking last 6 months, maybe a year, he announced he had Asperger's, and that was part of his feeling uncomfortable with other people and not necessarily being naturally, sometimes not even naturally charismatic. He's quite awkward and quite difficult, but that's because of his Asperger's. So I think they're the things that and I would say that he probably says that's his superpower. Now people are talking about their mental health, and we'll come on to mental health in a minute. People are talking about those experiences actually being benefiting, very much your gift of pain sort of idea, that people can, if they embrace these things, you can make them into a superpower and be successful.
Some of the most successful people on the face of the earth, no matter what they do, have some type of issues. I listen to certain singers, for example, and they have these raspy voices. No matter what genre, they're just raspy voice. And I promise you this, Mark, when they were kids, they were teased about that because they were different.
Yeah.
But now they are unique.
But raspy voices are, I think that comes from a lot of pain. I think there's that gravelly sort of sound is often based on some sort of, as you say, that could have been a difficulty while they're growing up, but there's something behind that style of voice that people are more aligned to sing in that style.
Yeah. And I think for the audience, here's a really good way to look at it. When you talk about the gift of pain, and you're exactly right, it's looking at a situation and changing your perspective. You're not changing the situation, you're changing your perspective on it. But everyone out there who feels that they have something that it's unique to them, that's not the status quo, it's unusual, and people are going to look at them or perceive them differently, that is a gift. That's an absolute gift. Look around at every successful person. They are different. They walked a different path. They chose to do something differently than everybody else did. They look different. They sound different. They act differently. And I think what happens at a certain point, they embrace that. I think they also had, even if it was one person, but they had people around them that said, you are good just like you are. Don't change. And I think that's the lesson, Marcus. Here's the reality. If all entrepreneurs created the same product because they knew that it was already created, what's the point?
Yeah.
If every entrepreneur acted like, or marketed like, or sold like everybody else does, you're not going to provide any unique value. So you need to be yourself and bring all of that with you. Bring your past with you, bring everything with you, because those are the characteristics and traits that make you unique as a business person, as an entrepreneur. Don't run from them, embrace them.
Absolutely.
Because those are your superpowers.
It's quite interesting. And I'll share an experience that I had and something that someone said. So for me, it sounds so cliched, but I grew up with in a happy family. I went to a good school, a little bit bullied on certain things, but I kind of fitted in because of sports. So I was given that sort of advantage in that way. Through my life, I've had events which have caused pain. We talk about the gift of pain. And I think that although I fitted in at school, experiences that I had through my life have caused pain, which has then driven me into the entrepreneurial world. And there's a singer called Frank Turner. He has done 2,000 gigs, something like that, over 2,000 gigs. And one of his songs, he talks about, look for the kids that don't fit in with the rest. And although at my school I fitted in, I now see when I look at my the people that my kids are interacting with and socializing with and things like that, when you see that, the kid that's slightly awkward, maybe because of Asperger's or ADHD or autism or whatever it is, they're the people who are going to drive change in society when they're 20, 30, 40, because they will have suffered. The people that have a smooth life, they go into corporate. They enjoy that experience. They get validated in the same way they got validated at school. And I think that whole point of when you're a parent, not to look, but that whole aspect of looking at the kids that don't just fit naturally, they're the people, as I just said, they're the people that are going to drive change in society. Whatever they do, it might be business, it might be music, it might be sport, whatever it is. They're the disruptors, to use another terminology. They're the people that are going to shake things up to make things different. So the long-winded question is, why do you think people that are disruptors in society are the people that drive the agenda beyond whatever field we're talking about, politics or society or culture or business? Why are those people the drivers?
Because someone told them along the way that they couldn't do something because of those unique traits that they had. Someone said you can't.
Yeah.
And Mark, you and I know, and the audience members know, when someone tells you you can't do something, you will run in the opposite direction. You're going to figure out how to do it, even if it's just to prove them wrong, or at the very best, to prove to yourself that you can do it. And that creates this fire. It's ignited within inside of you. And that fire burns a lot more hot and a lot more bright than someone who's never had or never faced adversity, because they don't have that fire. Like you said, that's what I believe you run into when you tell somebody can't do something.
Yeah, it's
or they're not going to be somebody.
Yeah,
there's 1,000 stories of that.
Absolutely. So Tony, you're a business strategy consultant. My question to you related to that, and we can talk more about your business, but my question to you is, are you actually a coach, a mentor, or a consultant?
Great question, because you must know the answer to that. First thing I would say is this: most people don't have a clear understanding of what a coach is.
Okay, well, tell me the differences between them all.
Yeah, they think of a coach as someone that coaches athletes in football or baseball, where they're telling them what to do. A coach's job literally is to ask thought-provoking questions not have anything pre-planned, but to ask that client a question.
Mm.
And that client will hear themselves and have to answer that question. And then you follow up with more questions. And then you just hold them accountable. That's really what coaching is. You never provide guidance. You don't tell them, go do A, B, C. That's not genuine coaching. A mentor is a person who has been where you're looking to go, or who is there today. And they will tell you, Mark, go do these 4 things tomorrow. Come back to me. Let me know when you're done.
Mm.
So that's what a mentor is. And I've had great mentors in my life that you follow, and I learned a lot from. From a business strategy consultant standpoint, the thing that I do is a combination of both. It's a little bit of coaching to get an understanding of where that person is, and for them to hear themselves state where they are. And then the strategy part comes in when, okay, if that's what your goal is, let's figure out a way to get there. But here's the thing, the destination that most people and most businesses say that they have is not really where the challenge is.
Okay.
They think they need to make more money, when the reality is they probably need to change the way they operate as a company. Where most people think that by making more money in their personal lives, that everything is going to be good. It's only going to magnify who you are today. And maybe you need to get rid of some people in your life and you'll be happier. So there is a strategy that goes along with it, but it's connecting with that person at a very human level and really understanding what they're trying to accomplish, not what they tell you their goals are. Because oftentimes, Mark, I find that those are 2 different things.
So define strategy for me.
Strategy is taking an idea and a goal and figuring out how to get from the idea part to the goal. And a strategy can be a series of actions. It could always also be a series of inactions.
Mm.
You tell a business owner, don't sell. That's the wrong strategy. So from a strategic standpoint, it's really walking down a road, taking a map along a journey and making sure that you are making the right decisions and planning for pitfalls, whether in personal life or in business life, and really looking out what your plan is moving forward, but also creating some steps every single day for that person or business to take to get to a certain goal. And it's unique to that person.
So I've always thought strategy is a macro level ambition, aim to go through. But actually what you're saying, you actually provide in your coaching side of your business some steps or mentor or steps that they need to take or things for them to think about. So actually you're actually providing the macro level, and then you're zooming in, and then you might pull them back out to zoom out to see the standing. Is that fair?
It is, because here's the thing, everybody is different. And there are certain people who you can coach, but they won't take the action. They know what they need to do.
Mm.
They will not take the action. So when you ask them as a coach, well, what are you willing to do to this in the next 60 days to lose 20 pounds? I'm going to cut back on this. I'm going to cut back on carbs. I'm not going to have my daily beer. Okay, great. 60 days from now, they will not reach their goals. So they know inside what they need to do. As a strategist, you really need to give people clear direction, not just on what they think they need to do, but on what you know for sure works in certain situations. For example, if you're a business and you're looking to scale, the first thing I do, one of the first recommendations that I have is you need to make sure your processes and policies are in place today. Because if you do that, that's something that's repeatable. You can take that document, you can take that process and teach it to 1, 5, 10, 20 people. And you have the quality control, the quality assurance of growing your organization without the jeopardy of changing the level of service or the quality of service that you provide. So that is a strategy. That you're teaching them methods of how to do things. But if you leave it up to them and they don't know, they're just going to struggle with it.
what you said just rings true to someone who's been on my podcast once or twice, and he is a brilliant business owner. He has developed a really successful business, written books. His name's called Mark Ridley. Absolutely have a lot of time for him. And he said to me, so he wrote a book on leadership and sales and how to build that. And he's based his business around, very similar to yours, strategic views on how to do sales, how to be a great leader. And he said to me, his style of teaching, of coaching, is to ask provocative questions. Really, like, and if you ask, like, how did you achieve that A, B, and C, you're not going to get too far with them. But if you ask them a provocative question which forces them out of their comfort zone or their little zone that they've created in their business, that's when you're going to get real impact and real change. Would you say you're honest, or would you say that you are provocative when you're asking those questions for your clients?
I think you have to be both. You have to be both. You have to be provocative, because here's the thing: as if you're coaching someone on business, you know probably 99% sure whether what they say they're going to do is going to work or not, based on your level of experience. I've been in business for 32 years. Mm. I know when certain things are going to work, when certain things are not going to work. So if someone says, okay, if you're asking them a question, what 3 things are you going to do tomorrow? And they give you 3 things, you know for sure they're not going to work. That's when it's time to be provocative. Okay. And you have to dig deeper. And then you ask a question. Okay, tomorrow, the first thing you're going to do, based on what you just said, is A. What's your intended outcome? What do you think you're going to achieve by doing that? Well, I'm going to be able to do such and such. Okay, if you're going to be able to do that with step A, is that closer to your goal, or is that taking you away from your goal? You have to continue to dig by not telling them, but continue to dig so that they hear themselves talk and they say, okay, well, okay. They'll correct themselves.
So that's a coach.
It is a coach.
Mind. That is the role of the coach, is to let them come to their own conclusions, but be directed, guided, questioned to get them to a place that you know they should be going to, but actually they need to hear it themselves saying it to be able to, for it to be impactful.
Yeah. And you can't let your clients down. Letting them down by hearing what they say, knowing that it's wrong, because there is a right or wrong, and there's a gray area, but knowing that it's absolutely wrong, and then just allowing them to run off tomorrow and go down that road. That's irresponsible as a coach. So our responsibility in this relationship that we have with our clients is to make sure that they're doing something that's actionable, that's moving them toward the goal they say they have, and that you hold them accountable. But you can't hold somebody accountable if you know they're going off in the wrong direction. You can't do that.
No, I would agree. What's the plan? What's the next 2 to 5 year plan for you, Tony?
More international business.
Okay.
I love international business. The thing I find is talking to people like you, Mark, for example, people around the world, it's you broaden your being. You become a different person. You're able to see people and talk to people who are vastly different than you are, who have different likes, have different ambitions, and you become a richer person because of that. And I absolutely love it. I think the thing with business is very important for the entrepreneurs listening is you should not only grow your clients, but you should grow because of those relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to grow a lot, which means I'm looking to have a lot more clients, but I know deep down inside that those relationships are making me better. And that's the journey that I think all entrepreneurs should consider as they do business, what they become.
And interestingly, I find it interesting. It wasn't a planned question. A lot of the stuff that you've done, motivational speaker, author, consultant / coach is all a very much you doing it. Is the plan to employ people to help you on your mission? Or do you employ people?
I have a team that I work with, but the reality is this phase of my life, I'm not looking to have, I've had hundreds of employees over the years. Managing large companies, large corporations is not something I'm looking to do anymore at this point in my life. And it's not because I'm shying away from the level of responsibility.
No, not at all.
But what it is I find that I enjoy the personal relationships more. Here's the thing for entrepreneurs. When you start a business, you are the practitioner. You're the one making the cookies. You're the one delivering the products. You're the one boxing up items and shipping it. You're the one who's making that food at the restaurant and taking it to the counter, and people are coming there to get their food. You see your clients. When you build a large corporation, you rarely see your clients, because what you're really doing at that point is you've created a machine. That machine, you have people who are client representatives, who are customer facing, people who are in HR. You don't even hire people or fire people anymore. And I've done that, and I appreciated that. I enjoy more than anything is having conversations face to face with my clients, because I'm about the relationship, and I don't need a huge team to do that. So I choose to be in front of my clients. I choose to nurture those relationships myself, because again, as much as it's fulfilling for the client and they're getting what they want or need out of that engagement, but so am I. And that's something that I missed when you have a big company.
Yeah, so true. So true. It reminds me of Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, where you have the practitioner, you have the operations or manager, and then you have the entrepreneur at the top directing. You are a long way from the practitioner point of view. If it's a baker or a restaurant, you're very far from that. So I think that's for my audience that's thinking about that. If you want to grow a business and scale it, those three bases, you need a practitioner, you need someone to do what you're selling. You then need managers and operational guys that can actually manage them and manage the business. But as the entrepreneur at the top, you have to be looking for other opportunities, having more than one restaurant or more than one bakery, etc. So I think that's but I totally respect you. I totally respect you that for you, relationships are more important than running a business with 500 people or 1,000 people or whatever. So thank you for that honesty. I really do appreciate it. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They do not need a quick fire answer. The first question is, what's the best decision that you made?
In life is marrying my wife, which produced our son.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Don't worry about the small things, because in life you'll have to deal with bigger ones. Save your energy for the big fights.
Who told you that?
My father-in-law.
Was he a mentor for you?
Yeah, he still is. He's a cool guy. That was one of the things that just stood out. My father would always say, that this too shall pass. And I use that all the time.
Oh, I love that. I tell you what, I saw that on social media. Tom Hanks said that he was in a group of like other actors, and it was perfect with all these amazing actors. And he just had this advice: if you're successful, it shall pass. If you're unsuccessful, it shall pass. As long as you understand that. And we're looping all the way back to the start, where being the being the head of the family, and just knowing that even in the worst situation you've got, and people go through terrible things, COVID, bereavement, mental health, whatever it is, it also shall pass. And I love that. That is one of my favorite quotes from someone. Thank you for jogging my memory on that. Next question is, who helped you most in your career?
George Gower.
Who's George
He
Gower?
was a marketing rep at IBM when I worked at IBM, and I was a technician.
Yeah.
And he was the one who helped me make the shift from being a technical person to a business owner. He literally helped me when I first started my business, he got me my first 6 or 7 clients.
Amazing.
He is a mentor to this day. I love George dearly. The interesting thing is, I didn't know this because I don't hire, but several years ago, his son applied to work at our company. I didn't know.
Oh,
The
really?
lady responsible for HR said, "This guy says he knows you." And I said, "Who is it?" "Derek Gower." And I said, "I don't know Derek Gower." She said, "Well, he says he knows you." He said, "You know his father." I said, "Wait a minute. Little Derek Gower was a baby when I met him. What is this?" Full circle. George helped me get into business, and I was able to help his son get a job
Amazing. That's
in his
beautiful.
life.
That's beautiful. Tell me about a regret that you have.
I would say that the biggest regret that I have is not thinking as big as I do today. I'm now, to be clear, I have some huge goals, and I've always had them in my life. Stuff that I never knew how to get from A to Z, but thinking even bigger than that. I grew company to $110 million in revenue. I never thought that wasn't even an idea that I had. I would have been happy at $1 million when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
But if I would have thought that I could grow a company to 110 million, maybe I would have done $500 million. So think way bigger than you think today.
Yeah, there's this old saying that, like, I might completely ruin this, but it's something like, what you think you can do in a day, you do less, but what you think you can do in your lifetime, you can't even dream what you can achieve. That dream might be 10, 20, 30 years into the future, but you've got no concept. So they say dream as big as you can. And even if you don't make it as far as that ultimate dream, you've made it a long way by dreaming big. So I think it's super important. Next question. What are you most proud of?
My son.
No, you can't say your son, because I knew you were going to say that.
There's a pattern here, right?
It is, absolutely. Tell me something else. Not your business, not your son. What would you say you're most proud of?
Building a technology center in the name of my son in Kenya, in a small town near Kimana.
Right.
And we had 37 students that we paid tuition for. And we built this technology center. I think it's the only one within 100-mile range radius. New computers, interactive monitors, just a whole nine. And we're going to go visit it in a couple of months.
Oh, amazing.
Just to kind of see the progress. That has to be by far one of the proudest things, the proudest thing.
That is incredible. I'd love to hear how you get on out there and what's been built. So please do reach out to me another time about how that went. What are you most, oh, we've done this. What are you most proud of? What does legacy mean to you?
Like Lin-Manuel Miranda said in the play Hamilton, that it's planting a garden that you never get to see grow.
Amazing. Yeah.
And isn't that what life is when we think of legacy? It's not for me to define. It's what people are going to think of me when I no longer have a voice to be able to chime in and convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, it's in the hands of other people.
Amazing. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
TonyRKitchens.com. There are social links at the bottom of that page. And there's also a link to the book in the upper right-hand corner under shop.
Amazing. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really thought-provoking, and there's been a lot of resonance of what you've said about what my life's like. So it's been really, really interesting hearing your view on it. And I'll probably reflect on this about my relationship with my family and the way I see things and where I want to grow my businesses as well. So I'll probably listen to this a couple of times just to do it. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. And good luck to your audience, whatever they decide to venture out and do.
Thank you.
I really hope you've enjoyed that content. It's a really fascinating interview that I've done there. So please do, if you are enjoying this content, please do give it a like. please do give a subscribe. It'd be really good to boost the subscriptions. It really makes a difference to the algorithm in YouTube. So thank you for that. If you do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon and you'll get all of the content. You'll get notified when all the content is available. Thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated. Thanks a lot.